We're delighted to have Gill Walker present which Dynamics 365 path is right for me. Gill Walker is Australia's leading Microsoft Dynamics 365 guru and will be sharing with us what these certifications are so that you can determine which one is relevant for you. You will walk away with vital information about Dynamics 365, so we hope you take a lot away. As an authorized Microsoft Learning Partner, NextTech provides the training, upskilling and certification across all Microsoft Dynamics 365 products. So anybody joining today's webinar will be able to book into a fundamentals course. We're hearing a few people wanting to learn a little bit more. The fundamentals is a really great way for you just to kind of have that baseline and then progress further. So any bookings into the fundamentals course today, which is normally $890, is going for $200. And then any additional courses booked will receive a 25% saving as well. So hopefully that is the push you need to get into certification. I hope you find this session of value and that you meet some interesting people. So thank you for joining our webinar. Now I'm going to hand over to Jabiz from NextTech to walk through this morning's proceedings.
Thank you, Cass, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this wonderful webinar. I'm super excited about it. I've had a chance to connect with Gill several times to go over kind of the content we're learning today. My name is Jabez. I am the Director of Marketing at NextTech and will be the fortunate one to get to interview Gill and to walk through these certifications. So I'm very excited about that. To give you kind of an idea of the day and how it's going to structure from a flow perspective, please, as Gill mentioned, if you got a question, don't hesitate. Turn on your video, raise your hand, hop into the chat. Like, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So we encourage you, if you got questions, if they're specific, if there's something we can't get the answer to, we'll definitely get back to you straight away on that. But do interact with us and do ask us questions throughout this process. This is supposed to be a conversation. It's going to be very educational. There's some slides, there's some questions, there's some content, and then near the end, right before the end of the webinar, we're going to break out into a couple of rooms and just have some conversations, see what questions people have. What did they learn? What did you take away from today? What were some things that maybe surprised you that you didn't know at all coming into this? So with that said, it is time for us to jump into our first question with Gill to figure out what on earth is like, what certificate, and we talked a lot about this, but what certifications can people take to really kind of boost their Dynamics career? A lot of people on this talked earlier about either wanting to move into a career with Dynamics or wanting to further their Dynamics. And so, you know, Jill, maybe I thought you could talk about some of the certifications that kind of are career oriented to boost individuals' careers.
Sure. So there are, I suppose, within the Dynamics and Power Platform space, there are 4 groups of certifications, and a bit later on I'll go into these in more detail. But the 4 broad groups are, first of all, the fundamentals courses that Cassandra mentioned a moment ago, and they are, as you would expect, let's get started on becoming familiar with this stuff. Then we have got the associate level, which cut right the way across, and that's quite a lot more depth and quite technical. And then the top level we've got across them all is the expert. And within those, we've got, obviously, there's fundamentals. Then we've got the CE certification, and that covers the general platform, sales, marketing, customer service, and field service. And then we've got all of the ERP stuff. So if you're more of an F&O person or Business Central, the ERP certifications are probably where you want to be headed.
Definitely interesting. Are there acronyms in there that maybe those that are just jumping in may want to be more familiar with?
There certainly are, aren't there? And I've just committed one of the cardinal sins. Thank you for pulling me up, Jabez.
Of course.
So CE stands for customer experience. And it is I suppose it is the front office. If any of you are working in or have been told by your management structure, to put it loosely, that you're working in CRM, you're probably, according to the current terminology, working in CE. So CE covers sales, marketing, customer service, field service, and it includes, but not today because as yet there aren't any exams in it, the project operations product that Microsoft have. So all of those are helping us look after our customers in some way. ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, and that is your accounting, finance, manufacturing. So there's probably a few other things. That's not my area of expertise as much, but it's what we could call back office. So in a typical organization that deploys both of those products, you would have far more licenses and therefore far more users for the CE customer experience product than the others. And even though the licensing now is split into the sales, marketing, customer service, field service, so individuals can have pretty much whatever combination of those they need to do the job that they need to do.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So what are some of the benefits of the certification for those different key roles? I mean, so we've got, technology folks, we've got project managers, we've got product owners, BAs, what are some of those benefits of these certifications for the individual roles?
I'm glad you said some, because I take it people have got places to go before bedtime tonight, and the benefits are massive. That one, as Cassandra said, I am a trainer, educator, expert in this space, and I have been training Dynamics 365 and its predecessors and other technologies in a similar vein for close on 30 years now. I can say hand on heart that when projects go wrong, and they go wrong way more often than I would like to admit, the reason that they go wrong is a lack of understanding from key people in the mix. Now, that is probably the short answer to Jabez's question. If you want your project to go well, and who doesn't, make sure the team broadly know about the products that you're implementing. And I would argue that we need to broaden the understanding, not just within the technical team, although in many cases I see technical errors due to a lack of knowledge of the technology. I sometimes talk about when all you've got is a hammer, you make every problem look like a nail. Now, to extend that into what we're talking about, if your knowledge of the technical side of Dynamics 365 is limited to, and I'll tell you another true story later on, if you know how to add fields and put those fields onto a form, but that is pretty much the limit of your knowledge, any problem that the business brings to you, you will likely try to solve somehow by adding a field and putting it onto the form, because that's your knowledge. In actual fact, the ability to add a field and then put it on a form is really two of the toys that you have in an enormous toy box. And you need to have a knowledge of a lot more of the opportunities available. So then when the business comes to you with, we've got this problem, or user blah has asked for this, you then can go through and evaluate which of the possible solutions is the best. And that applies not just to the technical people. even people who are project managers or business product owners or BAs, and probably some other roles. Jabez, you might need to help me here. But the more knowledge those people have of the technology that they're implementing, the better the overall deployment will be, because you avoid more this lost in translation or this gully effect where the business is saying this is what we need and technology is saying this is what we can do, and the two just keep going, but the communication isn't happening, because it's a little bit like a Greek person here and a Chinese person here. There's not much actual information transfer going to go on. So the more you can upskill all of the people in your team, the better the communication across all of the problems, the more problem solving you can bring to a problem, and the better the overall result will be. As you can tell, this is something I'm really quite passionate about.
No, that's why we have you here, which is fantastic. And you know what I hear you saying is that, you know, there's a couple facets. Number one, in your own knowledge, you know, level, you want to broaden outside of just your narrow scope of what it is specifically you do, so that you're more aware of ways in which you can use the multitude of the Dynamics 360. I mean, it's huge, yeah. Right? So don't go too narrow in your own education and knowledge, but also as a department and as a team, don't rely on one individual silo to understand all of the information, but make sure that multiple team members who are parts of projects have some understanding, maybe some certificates, but at least are able to communicate more effectively about how to utilize these tools.
Yes.
Because it makes you more efficient. It's going to save you money, and it's going to make the problem solving improved, because you're going to find better solutions if there's a broader understanding of the Dynamics 365 as a whole. You brought up a word, which is interesting, implementation, and Cass had also asked in the chat at the same time, which that wasn't even rehearsed. So, hey, good. We're already on fire here today. What are some common issues when implementing that you see or that you've heard of from folks?
Common is hard to answer because they're always different, but let me just tell you a few stories that are true from my experience. So the adding a field that I alluded to earlier, about a year ago, I was working for a client where the CIO thought, I mean, he probably didn't actually, but the way he interacted with me, that every problem could be solved by adding fields. And we actually went through a piece of work where, even though I was in there as the solution architect, he went behind my back essentially and got the developer to add a load of fields, which later proved to be the wrong way to solve the problem. And those fields then had to be rolled out. We had to do a data migration of sorts to move data out of that area. I've seen another project, this one was longer ago, where people, or again, the key user from the IT department, insisted very firmly that I created a custom entity to use the old lingo, table to use the newer lingo, for suppliers. Now, a supplier is a type of account, and it certainly was in this organization's. We could have an argument that it's a contact, but this organization, it was definitely an account. So he insisted that we created a custom entity rather than having it as a type of account. And of course, he didn't give us the full scope of what suppliers needed to do in their interaction. And so we got forced to making this entity more complicated, more complicated, more complicated. And it ended up being a lot of work for something that was already there out of the box. Another example from even longer ago, and this one is very old, so if anybody did this today, they'd want a serious rap on the knuckles. But these people had developed custom ASPX pages rather than configuring the forms that came in what was then Microsoft CRM. And I could go on and on and on.
I mean, you know, you said, you even mentioned lingo changing, right? So you even talked about how there was some lingo that used to be in and some lingo that's now. And I think that speaks to the importance of that continued education piece, because it does change. And we do change the way that we talk about these things. And we do change the lingo that is used to describe certain components of the software that we are using, the tools that we're using. And so it is important to make sure that we are staying aware and abreasted on the most latest up-to-date information. But I want to get into some of this kind of there's multiple paths, right? There's really two real relevant paths on the Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. Can you walk us through those paths so we can start talking about some of the specifics on the certifications?
I can. There is one thing that popped into my mind that I'd just like to go to a little bit earlier, and that's the high-level purpose of certifications. So why you might even want to walk through this path in the first place. And one of the biggest benefits of certification is that it gives you some structure. So if your manager or somebody in your team, probably senior to you, just says, go away and learn Dynamics 365, and then there'll be a really good job, or maybe there isn't even a carrot at the end of it. They're just saying, go away and learn Dynamics 365. You're left with, where on earth do I start from? What do I already know? What is relevant? What is linked to what? And looking at the certification, and specifically the syllabuses of each individual certification, gives you a structure. So if you choose to do PL 200, and that's one that I'm very familiar with, that in and of itself has 5 broad subjects in it, and each of those subjects has topics. So if nothing else, taking that syllabus and using it as a framework on which to say, I need to understand this, and within this, that I need to understand this, and this. Okay, of those, I know that one and I know that one, but I've got some big holes there and there. Immediately, you've got a lot more help in terms of learning Dynamics 365 than that very woolly command from your management, just go away and learn Dynamics 365. So the structure is probably as good a reason as any for people using these certifications. So if we now go and step through, I pulled together a few slides to make this a little simpler for you.
Thank you.
So now, can people now see my screen? It should be blank at the moment.
Yep. Looks great.
Let us move on.
Yep.
Okay, where is that window? So these are the CE awards. So what we've got there is, you'll have seen from the build that we had, and it wasn't supposed to go that fast, so we'll go back a bit. If we look at that, all of that left-hand column is PL 200, which is the Functional Consultant Award. And if you pass that exam only, you get the Power Platform Functional Consultant Associate Award. So that's what the top row of that is showing. Then If you add to your PL200 MB210, which is the sales exam, you get the Dynamics 365 Sales Functional Consultant Award. And then similarly, if you get the 220, which is marketing, you get the Marketing Functional Consultant. 230 is customer service, you get the Customer Service Functional Consultant. 240 is field service, you get the Field Service Functional Consultant. Once you have got any one of those 2-star functional consultant awards, if you add PL 600 to that, you get the coveted Solution Architect Award, which is what that bit is showing you. And all of those certifications are in the CE functional space.
So it starts with PL200 as kind of the foundational.
There are some foundation exams that are really, let's get your toe in the water and get you started, that lead to a 1-star award, but they're not on this slide. And they're not.
The PL200 is what you need to get to all the 2 stars. You have to have the PL200 to get to any one of these 2-star.
Absolutely. Awards. And you don't need any of the 1-star. So I haven't bothered doing any of those foundation exams, because when these exams came out, really over the last couple of years, I looked at them and I thought at that point I'd got probably 15 years experience, including developing my own training materials. And I looked at the foundation and I really thought, I can't face these. So I went straight in at, well, it was MB200. And in fact, it gave me the nudge.
What kind of timeline are we looking at here? So like, how long would it take a person starting, let's say they go through some of their fundamental stuff, they get some of their basics down, they begin to get a really strong framework, and they want to launch into PL200 and then take one of those extra certifications. How long does that sort of thing take?
If you are able to really go head down and bum up and just work and basically put your life on one side, somebody coming into that would need, I think, at least a month of work. So studying, doing courses, playing with some trial environments so they see it for themselves. So getting some real hands-on experience. Obviously, if you're more experienced, that time is going to shrink. And if you want to do other things with your life, like continue looking after your family or maybe going to work, that time is going to spread out. So it's hard to give an absolute answer. But I suppose one thing that we can do, the PL200 course, as offered by Microsoft and NextTech and a number of other people, is a 5-day course. I think it would be fair to say that for every day of the course, you probably need to do at least another day of solid work to make sure you are across everything that's in it to get yourself to exam level.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So if you were, kind of thinking about spreading it out over, you're looking about 10 days, give or take.
As a bare minimum, I think.
As a bare minimum, yeah. So this is one pathway.
So that is the CE or CRM parts, and now we come into the ERP, which is similar. So again, we've got MB 300 plus the 310 gives you the Finance Functional Consultant Award. Then we've got 300 plus 320 gives you a Manufacturing Functional. Then we've got 300 plus 330 gives you a F&O or Finance and Operations Functional Consultant. And the bottom one is the Business Central Functional Consultant. So again, those 2 slides are all for functional people. But having said that, they are fairly technical. So, and some of them, including the PL200, will require you to at least have maybe not a coding head, but a logic head in terms of what you're doing. And then the final slide that I've pulled together is the developer. So again, we've got PL100 gives you the Power Platform App Maker. And then 400 gives you the developer, the CE, Power Platform or CE developer. And MB 500 and 300 gives you the ERP or F&O developer awards. The bit that I forgot, and my slides reminded me, but it was too fast, is there is also a solution architect, MB 700, I think it is, on the ERP side. So there is a 3-star award for that one as well. As far as I can tell, there is no 3-star on the developer.
Yeah, no, and you know, it's interesting. So for most of us here, there's a lot of courses with a lot of MB 300, PL 200, and I could understand where I think for someone starting out, as a couple people on here are, even those people who are in the middle of it, getting a little lost in understanding which courses go where and what if I want to do what, and how do I know which courses to take. And that's where people like, you know, you connect with like the BDMs at NextTech, and they're able to say, hey, here's the path that you need. Like there's what are you trying to accomplish? Where are you trying to go with your career or the skills that you're trying to learn? And here's some courses you're going to need to know about. You know, you can try Googling it. It can be a little confusing that way. So you're best to connect with somebody once you start to go down this path, just to get some clarity on kind of making sure you're getting all the right pieces of the puzzle in place and not accidentally barking up the wrong trees as you're trying to hit a target and head down your ultimate goal of you know, boosting your career or gaining the new skills that you may want to change into a new career. So you go through all this work and you get these certificates and these awards, and then how long do they last? They expire in like 6 months, or what is how long do I get to keep
current lifespan, I suppose, is 12 months. It used to be 2 years, but they have relatively recently changed it that if within the 12 months, for most of them, you can sit relatively simple. I haven't done any of these yet, but it's touted to be a relatively simple online exam that will then renew it for a further year. But overall, they are only valid. Well, the exams are valid forever, because once you've passed an exam, you've passed it. And if you were to look at my Microsoft transcript, I am still credited with some exams that I passed back in 2007. How much use they are is another matter. But the awards are what have the lifespan. So they are only valid.
Sorry to cut you off there. I want to just have a pulse check with everybody in the session, if I can, just to kind of check in and see, because there's like Jabez said, there's lots of different certifications there. To me, overwhelming. I want to know. I want to know, is everyone keeping up? If you can put in the chat between 1 to 10, I guess how relevant this is to you, or if you're understanding, 10 being spot on, you get it, you know, perfect, 1 being not so much, we might need to explain it a little more. Can I just get people just to chuck in the chat between 1 to 10 how relevant and how you're keeping up with the session? Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to.
Okay. What I also have.
It was good to take a second and recheck in here, because it is a lot. And you know, and again, there's likely to be some questions starting to brew. So please think about those questions. I'm seeing a lot of 7s, a couple of some 8s. So I think 7, we're kind of getting it. It's a lot. Like 7's not incredibly confident. We're doing okay. We're feeling maybe a little overwhelmed, and just kind of the total amount of knowledge is significant for sure. I mean, where does one go to kind of learn about this process and these certificates?
I have a slide. So if we go back to here and we go to the final slide in the deck, where you go is to that website, and I can put that also in the chat for people.
Yeah, and we can make sure that everybody gets that emailed out too. We'll make sure that people get that as well. And you know, there is definitely I think a lot when it comes to the certifications. And what are some of the things questions that you get asked by people going through the process? Like what are some of the common questions that people say, hey, you know, I'm looking to embark on getting some of these certifications, and where do people tend to get hung up, or what do you hear? Because you're talking to these people all the time in trainings and
Sure,
you know, out there.
I think if I were to give you some general tips specifically around the certification, which means taking the exams, it is the level of detail that the questions go into. So if you're somebody and you think, yes, I've been playing with dynamics for a few months, I'll just go and have a go at one of the exams or the PL200 exam, I think on the balance of probability, you would fail, and you would probably fail with achieving less than half of the pass mark. So the pass mark for most of these exams is 700. And I honestly think somebody with that profile, i.e. I've been playing with dynamics for a few months, I'll go and have a go, they would probably be lucky to score 300 because of the level of detail that the questions go into. So that is certainly one point. Make sure that you really do know the ins and outs. There's a significant number of the questions ask you to put things into order. So not only what is, so I'm going to give you a completely non-technical example that everybody will relate to. Imagine that you got a question where the question was, arrange the colors of the rainbow in order. And they then give you a list of, let's say, 15 colors. So your task, and the only way you will score full marks on that question, is to get red, orange, yellow, green.
I was going to say,
yeah.
don't even.
So Richard
yes,
of York
all of them in line.
Vain. So you need to get all 7 and in the right order to score the marks for that exam. If you ended up with, let's say, blue, yellow, green, orange, red, violet, indigo, even though that's the right 7 colors, you would score 0, because I think if I did what I intended to do, I've got none of the 7 are in the right place.
Sure. So you could have all the right 7, but in the wrong order. And that's kind
Absolutely.
of an example of how these certification tests are worth definitely studying up on. So I want to take a quick second here. And I like that we got a fair amount of 7s in the room. And I want to give people a chance to ask some questions, because
sure. I think that's a great idea.
We've got you here. We've got people who are going to want to know, you know, maybe something specific to what they're thinking about. So I just wanted to open up the floor to anybody who wants to just turn on their video and raise their hand, and then just, you know, let us know what, you know, specific question that you may have about this process, or a course or certificate or award that you might be looking to pursue. It's like an auction. I think everybody maybe is also, I think it was Paul, are on a walk, hopefully out enjoying the nice outside. Well, I don't know what the weather is right now in there out in Sydney, but I'm in the United States, so I'm on the other side of the world right now. But all right, so we'll just go ahead and keep on going. It doesn't look like we had any burning questions right out of the gates, but do think of those questions and don't hesitate, please, to really get up there and turn on your video and help us all out in just understanding some of the things that you may be trying to figure out. So I saw that Joel had posted the link to the training poster. That is a Microsoft poster that does have a nice, wonderful, and Jill, thank you for making sure that we shared that, a nice, wonderful list of kind of those certificate pathways and how those certificates break out. Are there any pathways that you believe are, for those that are looking to make a change in their career, any pathways that you recommend people pursue?
To be honest, I think the answer to that is pursue the path that best matches your interests and skill set. So,
because I mean, it's got to be a long road to the architecture level, right? So
yes.
that 3-star, that is not a 10-day process.
That's
got to be a lot longer.
It would be, because the 10 days was head down, bum up to get PL 200. And even then, I think it's a bit of a stretch unless you've already got some knowledge. So if we think that to get the architect exam, you've got to get the PL 200 or the equivalent in the ERP space. You've then got to get one of the other exams, so sales, marketing, customer service, field service, or the equivalent in the ERP space. And then you probably need to have worked on at least a couple of projects shadowing the architect and learning some of those. How do you go about requirements gathering? How do you go about taking requirements and giving those requirements to a technical team to implement? And they are different skills yet again to what you covered in the earlier exams. So I think we'd be looking at probably 15 days, head down, bum up, to get to the point where you could even start on the architect. And then you've probably got further 6 months. And all of that is very, very tight.
Yeah, so you're definitely. So I think the lesson here is that can be long-term planning for sure. For most of us that are looking at just kind of making sure we're getting into this certification and award process, pick a pathway that makes sense for you, or maybe is an additional piece for your team that you can add into. So one thing that I wanted to do here to take a moment is we're going to break out into some breakout rooms for just a couple of minutes. Give everybody a chance to chat. So this is a heads up that we're going to be breaking into breakout rooms here in just a moment. And we're going to give people a chance to tell each other kind of what are some of your takeaways, what might you still be confused on, what are you hoping to walk away with, and how are we looking to really set up the right direction to head on some of these certification pathways. So Belinda's going to be breaking us into rooms. You'll see a pop-up come up real fast to join the room. Hop in there. We'll have some folks bouncing around, and then we'll come back to wrap up here in just a couple of minutes. There is always mid-conversation.
Can I continue my answer to Mayat?
Yes. Can you ask her question out loud so everybody can get it? Because I thought that was a good question.
Yeah. Oh, well, I went through the certification as I'm looking into MB 910. That's purely on dynamics. So rather than going through PLs, and is that the right way to do also? Okay,
that actually leads into another question that I saw in the chat. If you're going to do the PL 910, I would do that before PL 200, or rather the MB 910. MB 910 is a very high level, broad brush of what is dynamics sales, what is dynamics marketing, what is dynamics customer service, what is dynamics field service. So it's the four of them, very broad brush.
Right, I see.
It might be a good start point if you've got somebody, or if you are somebody who really doesn't know whether they should go down the sales, marketing, customer service, field service avenue. But if you're going to do that one and PL200, I would do the MB 910, which is a fundamentals first. Then I would jump into PL200.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
It's possibly worth explaining these abbreviations of PL and MB that I've been bandying around, and you will see on the aka.ms train cert poster. So the MB is all dynamics, and it's high functionality type stuff. Whereas PL is power platform. The first exam that I took in recent history was MB 200. And that exam no longer exists. About a year ago, that morphed into PL 200, which is the most recent exam that I've taken, and became more technical. So I won't share it here, but if anyone's interested, they can contact me later. I did a comparison slide between MB 200 and PL 200. And PL 200 is more technical, and they've pulled out things like some of the Outlook stuff and a few other bits. I can't remember the full detail of it, but it's definitely moved it into the power platform stable rather than the functional stable.
Very, very, very interesting. You know, this obviously is dynamics is massive, and in a conversation we've mentioned we could have all day long for certain. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I want to thank Gill for her expertise. I noticed that there was some 7s and 8s in comments. We had some questions in our breakout room. If anybody has any questions that they just didn't get answered or that they want follow-up with, just go ahead, hop in the chat, just type the word yes. Somebody from our team can hop over and shoot you an email or give you a call and just see kind of what questions may be specific to your path that you didn't get answered. So maybe you had a question about, man, I'm really thinking I want to do this. What do I need to know? We can definitely kind of give you some follow-up information more specific to your actual needs and where you're headed. So just type in yes in the chat, or obviously reach back out. We are going to be sending a follow-up email after this just to say thank you and make sure that you all have our contact information as well. And with that, I just wanted to thank everybody for their time and for joining us this morning. I thought it was very informative, very interesting topic of a very complex thing. But now I feel like at least we have a good roadmap on where we can head in which direction, and a little bit better understanding on what it's going to take to get there, which is, I think, very important.
And if any questions do drop into the chat in the next few minutes before I get booted out, I will have a go at answering them. So if you've got any burning questions, please either unmute and ask or drop them in the chat and I'll pick them up and answer them here.
Very much, Gill and Jabez, for running today's session, and everyone joining in. I hope you got something out of that. So really appreciate your time. Have a fantastic day, and yeah, we'll share the recording via email with any additional information. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.